Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington and Charles Bishop are both on assignment. So some of the other normal faces you see, AD. So I brought in a whole nother crew. Folks that said they can get it right because everybody else can't get it right. So I have none other than Bryan Fulford, Jamie Walker, and David Rhodes. Yes, if your screen looks like there's a lot of puppy power, let me do it right. A lot of Aggie pride, then you know what's going on. It's because I got the team of Aggie, so it might be a really intriguing show today. Because these brothers, while they do what they do on that side, they know some football. So let's get it on and let's get what we have in store for you today. It's the Sunday after, as Charles would say. There's some folks that are moving closer to the ledge and those that are moving away from the ledge. Starting with you, Bryan. Who are you telling? Get off the ledge, brother. It's okay. It's okay.
Southern Jaguars. Boy. You know, come on. Don't jump just yet, Southern. Don't jump just yet. Don't jump. I know you want to. Don't jump just yet. You knew you weren't going to win that game. You were 10-point underdogs. You knew what was going to happen. So don't be dismayed. I had to check on Carlos Brown. Had to make sure he's okay. But Carlos is a realist. So Carlos wasn't too high or low up going into the game. But for the rest of y'all, Jag Nation, relax.
I like it.
Wait until after the FAMU game to jump. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Jamie,
of course.
You talking today, man? Get off the ledge.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna throw the softball to my fellow Aggie, David. So I'm gonna stay with the D2s. Listen, Benedict, don't jump off the ledge just yet. I saw a lot of potential with that team. You got to consider the fact that, you know, Coach Ron Dickerson was hired late. You got to consider that Coach Chennisberry took a whole lot of people to Orangeburg with him. And I think the showing versus Lane last night was not indicative of what this team will be. So at the end of the day, I think don't jump off the ledge just yet. Stick with this squad. I know you saw a lot last night that was frustrating, especially considering how the last 2 years have been glorious, but stick with this squad. I think you'll be okay. Don't jump off the ledge just yet. Stay there.
Good one. Dave?
To my fellow Aggies, I know this is hard for y'all, but it's time to do not jump off the ledge quite yet. We got the Classic this week. You got a little bit of time. We got the Classic this week. And then we go to Orangeburg the following week against South Carolina State. So do not jump off the ledge just yet. We haven't even played a team that had the same amount of scholarships as us yet. Don't jump off the ledge just yet.
I love it. Great work in terms of calm down. Relax. Welcome to episode 548 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, both on assignment. Charles was actually in Jackson getting it done over there. Mike was on the road covering some HBCU football as well, getting it done in the North Carolina area as he prepares to also do double duty, checking out his sons both playing lacrosse. With that being said, we're filming from our home studios with the Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. No simulcast today, but you know how that goes. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THD Agency. THD Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. I also want to say thank you for this team here. As we have built out with BCSN, Bryan is a partner of us, all connected with Roy, who has the vision of what's going on. I've added a little bit of vision for that, and I wanted, as we can in a lot of ways, we get programmed throughout the week covering HBCUs, those content creators, those journalists, media pundits, if you would. We're doing the same thing on BCSN, and in fact, Dr. was inside the HBCU show. Seen that over the last couple of weeks. David and his crew, we can't call them independent. Jamie will join them at times as well on that Wednesday when things are showing up, when his schedule works, and they want to bring him in to talk about that independence. Obviously, we have Brandon of Tennessee State, who's been on assignment, but he'll join them as well. But you have Hampton and A&T guys getting it done on Wednesday for you. Look for us to push the limit there. We also had the Friday edition debut with Kyle Mosley and Wilton Jackson II to give you a lot of indication of how things ended the week as you get prepped on the road, traveling, and all those things, getting ready for your Saturday games, and talking a little bit about those Thursday night games that are passed. They'll give you that. They touch on a little bit of the NFL as well, those HBCU players in the NFL, to keep your eyes on that so we stay connected. The next chapter, as you know, will be a Monday edition, and you'll see some folks like Jamie kind of pushing forward with that, and some other folks, hooks that we're adding the team. And uniquely, that Monday edition will focus on the D2 HBCUs. You'll get a week of content that you can find live at a significant time, 6 o'clock Central Time at 7 Eastern. It allows you to get your pool of HBCU programming with the designated content on certain areas. So look as we continue to push forward with that, and I want to thank all three of you for being a part of that.
No problem. Appreciate you.
Not a problem, Doc. Appreciate the opportunity, man.
Oh, no doubt. And thanks, Bryan, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting. With that being said, let's see what happened to the top 7 teams last week as they got it on this past weekend. What did they do? Man, interesting. We had Florida Memorial Lions. They were receiving votes last week. So essentially they were in the A spot. For the first time since like 1995, when old team rules were established for college football, we had a tied football game. Florida Memorial Lions tied Clark Atlanta 28-28 in terms of down there because of the weather in the Clark Atlanta Panthers having to get on the bus to get back. We were in the sports cave, if you would, as we talk about games all weekend from the BCSN perspective in Texas. And Bryan stood out there and made a comment, horrible, horrendous. And it's good to get more additional context when I saw that. I was like, man, he tough, because I was just like, we can understand with the limitations, getting on the bus, got to send them back. Then he quickly added additional context. Because of how the contest was going, he was saying it was unfortunate the game couldn't be finished. And with that, I agree with him 100%. I was about to jump down his throat for no reason, because I thought he was saying that, hey, they should play the game regardless. I don't care about the kids, whatever. No, not that much. So it's interesting when you get to talk to people, you get more of the context versus when you text. Hopefully they bring it on. So many things get lost in translation from emails, texts, collective groups, or whatever, which drives us all crazy. But that's just an example. At number 9, essentially, would be West Virginia State Yellow Jackets. They lost to Carson Newman Eagles. That was 56-25. Elizabeth City State Vikings got a big victory in non-conference play. They proved to 2-0 as they beat Erskine. 20-0 was the final there. Top 7. The Fayetteville State Broncos lost to Valdosta State Blazers 34-0. A lot of us were looking at that matchup, and it was not really close. At number 6, Winston-Salem State Rams they continue to win. They defeat Ohio Dominican 19-13, 2-1 as they improve 2 on this season. Number 5, Virginia State Trojans did not play. And number 4, Virginia Union Panthers did not play. At number 3, the Shaw's Bears lost to Catawba 37-28. At number 2, I told you about this one, tied. Clark Atlanta Panthers tied with the Florida Memorials 28-28. So they are 2-0-1. Be fasting to watch that the rest of the season, as that will go on the ledgers and people are going to be like, a tie. I didn't know we had ties. Yes, in this case, because of the weather and needed travel to get students safely home, bus requirements. That's the difference when you don't have the charter planes involved. The previous week when you seen in North Carolina Central and as well as Alabama State, there was a little concern, but they were able to kind of make things work in terms of making sure that they could get to those charter planes to get them back home. So they pushed through. Also, the fact that it was aired on ESPN, a lot of ways that you see how when you start increasing the monetary components of that, it changes the outlook of how those games happen. Something to keep in mind when we talk on this side, the business side of sports. Let me get to you all, the mid-major. Anything surprise you in terms of those scores in the top 7 plus the 3 from the receiving votes error? Any thoughts on those teams? I'm going to start with you, David. What's on your mind in terms of anything there?
When I was younger, Johnson C. Smith wasn't exactly the best team in the CIAA. To see them dominate Lincoln like that is incredible. And it's fun to see. As somebody from South Carolina, about an hour away from Charlotte, I'm very impressed of how well Johnson C. Smith is playing. And it's going to be fun to see how the CIAA pans out from that standpoint.
Great comments, and I was thinking the same thing. You know, we're all kind of waiting for that bubble to burst, whether it's Clark Atlanta, the Shaw Bears. Not so much for Clark Atlanta. They got the tie, so the Shaw Bears did get the loss. So the fact that Johnson C. Smith won, but impressively the way they won, you're like, let me look a little more at this Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. Maybe they are who we did not think they were. Jamie Walker, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I had to echo the sentiments of David as well when it comes to what Johnson C. Smith was, being from the state of North Carolina as well. They weren't good back in the day, but kudos to Maurice Flowers. But I had to tease Coach Keaton. Coach Keaton's been in this cancellation deal before during his time at Allen when against Livingstone, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they had to cancel a game as well. I think ending in the tower just went as it didn't count at all. So interesting to see. But I'm going to go with the Fayetteville State Valdosta game because I think when you're talking about what those teams stack up as going against a D2 power like Valdosta State, seeing Albany State going there and get boat raced as well, along with Fayetteville State, getting beat. I think, it's a good measuring stick on how our D2s stack up. And right now we're not doing so well. Hopefully throughout the season we'll improve that. But I think, it was interesting to see Valdosta really, really take, our D2s to task. Hopefully we can get that corrected and back in because it tells a lot for the playoffs.
Yeah, great points being made when you look at that. The other part of that is the surprise of how much it's really affecting the SIEC. The CIAA continues its domination. I can't say it any other way over the SIEC as Livingstone Blue Bears defeated Allen Yellow Jackets 23-21. In that, the CIAA goes 6-0 over the SIEC. So the CIAA at the Division II level for HBCUs, without a doubt, is where football is right now.
It's phenomenal, Doc, because last few years the SIAC has probably been getting more of the publicity, but I think those bottom tier teams of the CIAA had to play catch up, and now you're seeing that entire conference really elevate its play. So kudos to them. Great points.
Bryan, where are you at?
Well, Doc, I was going to go with the Fayetteville State game, but since Jamie covered that, and I'm going to go look at the Winston-Salem State game. Going up against another Division II opponent, Ohio Dominican. You know, and you know, I'm sorry, Dave and Jamie. Winston-Salem State should be unbeaten right now. I'm just gonna say it. They should be 3-0. They let one get away. They let them off the hook. They let y'all off the hook. I went back and saw the replay of that last play at the end. Boy. I know y'all were sweating. Anyway,
I was there.
Yeah. Oh well, you know. So I mean, so I look at Winston-Salem and say, okay, I know the Rams. You know, they might have finally got it figured out. And it's encouraging. They're winning close games. I think the fact that they had to win in overtime, right? I think it was an overtime game, 19-13, right? So it shows that, hey, you let a game get away from you last week and you turn around the next week. And I believe it was on the road. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. I don't know if it was it on the road?
No, I think it was at Bowman Gray.
Okay, so but still, the matter of fact is you had an overtime ball game and you found a way to get a win. That's impressive. And Ohio Dominican is in terms of ratings about middle of Division II, kind of right about where a lot of the upper level CIAA teams are. So watch out, CIAA. Here come the Rams.
Good stuff. Let's move into our second segment. We'll come right back after this break, and we'll talk about the major division and look at what took place this past weekend. Give you those updates of the top 7, and then we'll get into the reveal. The new major division, top 7, will be revealed this morning. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
This is Bryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Let's get into this week number 2 for the major divisions. Florida A&M Rattlers did not play, so coming in at the number 1 spot, 2-1. But let me get to those teams that were receiving votes. Jackson State Tigers improved to 2-1. They defeat Southern Jaguars, dominated the front line play, in my opinion. 33-16 was the final there. Prairie A&M Panthers went up to Michigan State and lost 40-0. I'm not sure what this says when you lose 40-0, and many of the people are saying, well, it's not as bad as I thought it may be.
They covered, Doc. They
did
covered.
cover.
Oh, okay.
They covered 42 and a half points.
When
That's
you
a
play
win
those
for some
games,
people.
it's about the line, man. It's about the line. If they cover,
That makes sense. See,
all right, they cover you rocking.
We learn every day. Howard Bison, they defeat Morehouse Maroon Tigers 35-21. I'm not sure if the game was that close, but it certainly was exciting for a lot of folks in the New York area. With that, let's get in the top 7. The Texas Southern Tigers did not play. At number 6, you have the Alabama State Hornets lost to Sanford Bulldogs 12-7 defensive game. Had a lot of opportunities in that game, and just particularly the last drive when they had about 4 minutes to see if they could get one final offensive drive. They would have got the ball in pretty decent field position maybe. And on the third down, they get a stop. And then on that same play, post-possession, after it was concluded and got the stop, they got a personal foul penalty, which gave them the ball, the first down. They had another chance on that same drive, a little deeper on that drive, where they had a chance to get a stop on third down. Coming out of a timeout, they get a penalty for 12 men on the field. It was like a 3rd and 6. It moves it to 3rd and 1. And as they come back to get a line for the Bulldogs to run the play, you could tell there was confusion, and they easily got the first down. So I know there's some frustrations over there with the Hornets in regards to how well the defense is playing, but just not really getting much from the offense in those tough plays to not be able to close out and give themselves more of a chance. At number 5, Delaware State Hornets lost to Wagner Skyhawks 30-17. Score looks lopsided. It was close to that throughout the game. One of those games where you're on the road where you know you got to play at a certain level because you're just not going to get a penalty. There were 2 penalties where the back judge threw a flag 20-some yards after the play was basically over, saying that he saw holding that were crucial throughout the game. Obviously not the difference, but certainly makes it harder for you to even put yourself, as it was a 1-score game when they were trying to drive to maybe take the lead or tie it up. Number 4, South Carolina State Bulldogs lost to Georgia Southern Eagles 42-14. And number 3, Morgan State Bears lost to Ohio State Bobcats 20-6. Watch this game as well. It was 14-6. Bears get the ball literally on 1st and goal inside the 5 and basically got stuffed. Question a little bit of the play calls. It seems like they're going to try to run it up the middle. I know that's what they want to do, but I'm like, man, you got a chance to really make a play. They know you're running up. You might want to do something else. Couldn't get it done. End up missing the field goal to make it worse. And the Bobcats come back and score and finalize the game. North Carolina Central Eagles lost to North Carolina Tar Heels 45-10. Question is about the quarterback getting hurt in that game. At number 1, Florida A&M Rattlers did not play, as we said. So that is the top 7 for the major division this past weekend. Brian, anything stand out to you right there?
I'll start at the top, Doc. Second consecutive week, North Carolina Central has given up 40-something points plus, right? Question some people's polls when they lost at home to an Elon school, in-state school, 41-19. But people still have it too. I said, oh, really? I'm like, okay. So now I'm looking at people when, let me see. I don't know. Dave, check me here. Did they cover expectation?
I think they actually did.
Yeah, I think they did. They
did. I think the line was like 40, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
39.5, something like that.
Yeah, but I think the reality now is I guess if you don't have your quarterback, what's North Carolina? I mean, can the Aggies actually be? I'm excited for y'all Aggies. I'm excited. I'm
excited too.
Optimistic y'all are. I'm optimistic for y'all. So I'll just step out of the way and let y'all talk about that.
Oh, trust me, you don't have to step out the way because they're gonna talk.
Oh God, it's gonna be a long
With that being
week.
said, on this show, Brian, you can't talk about a team not supposed to be somewhere without telling us who you would have at number 2 last week. That is.
It's funny you asked me because I looked at my rankings from last week, and I actually had Morgan State ranked number 2 last week, and I had North Carolina Central all the way down to number 7 because I looked at it. And last week was tough because you're measuring teams that are playing teams that you should beat versus games that you should lose. So you're valuing bad wins and bad losses, But one thing that was true, you played an FCS opponent. You played at home, and you got ran out the field by 20. That was bad for me.
Good points. Good points. David, what are your thoughts?
So there was a couple games I watched yesterday. One of them was I watched some of the UNC school down the road game, and I watched some of the Sanford Alabama State game. And I think it's going to be a tale. I'm going to talk about Alabama State and Morgan State. They have to figure out how to produce an offense. It needs to happen for both of these teams. Defensively, I think they're both there. I'm just more concerned about their inability to produce an offense right now. Particularly at Morgan State, like I picked those guys to win the MEAC. I think defensively they're ready. They just gotta figure out their offensive side of the ball. And same goes for Alabama State. But I know Alabama State's got some quarterback challenges right now. But with the new OC, we would hope that they would be able to make some adjustments and figure it out.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And Jamie, finally, I need your thoughts on the major division. Those scores. Anything stand out for you this past weekend in terms of the top 7?
Well, David kind of alluded to Morgan State, especially. We all celebrated when they scored over a certain amount of points in the first week. So we thought, okay, now the offense has existed. Now they're, a full complement with the defense that they always have produced. So it's head scratching to see where they are now in the last couple of weeks, not being able to produce points. So what we're seeing here is, getting back to the drawing board, going ahead and figuring out who you are, because I think teams with identity are starting to show themselves. As far as the Alabama State, I think they got a built-in excuse, to be perfectly honest with you. You're losing 2 of your quarterbacks, lost 2 of your quarterbacks, expected to be, those producers. And now, you're going to freshmen and them being able to compete against Sanford and actually play a good defensive ball game was telling. But us Aggies, we know the Chris Barnett system, offensive system. And I think they'll get that figured out. It's just a matter of, whether the quarterback can give them what they need to be successful. All the predictions and all the praises we sang to Alabama State in the beginning. I'm curious to see where they'll end up. I think they'll be a better team in the end. But right now, you're talking about competing in that SWAC East. Right now, I would say they're 3rd, maybe even 4th.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 2 games that are not on here in terms of their teams being ranked the top 7 or even receiving votes. One of them did drop out of the poll last week, and I thought they made a nice statement. Outside of SWAC, playing a team in the SWAC was the Southern Heritage Classic. Tennessee State pretty much dominated that game. It was close to keep your interest, but they had a comfortable lead throughout that game, particularly after the first quarter when it was maybe a little tight. But as it went into the second quarter, definitely as it went into half, the Tigers had pretty good control. The other one was Hampton going against a team in the MEAC, Norfolk State. As you talk about going on the road, Bryan, in the FCS, Norfolk State got handled in that up front. Said that about Jack State Southern, and you told them not to get off the ledge. So you might have to tell Norfolk State either to get off the ledge or you might be telling them to jump. Without that being said,
there was one point I was watching that game. There was one point in that game where Hampton had more points than Norfolk had yards of offense.
Yes. That was similar to Southern.
It was
had
bad.
less than 30 yards. They had 28 rushing yards for that game, while Jackson State had over 200. So you're talking about physically dominating. When you get mixed matches like that, that means your guys up front dominated on both sides of the ball. Unlike what you talk about Alabama State and Samford, where you're able to dominate defensively to keep the team under 2 full scores, if you would, touchdown scores. Unlike this is when you get that kind of nomenclature, man, it's crazy. With that being said, we're going to take our next break. And as we said, we'll finally come back and we'll unveil the top 7 rankings in the major division. First time Sunday morning, you get it hot off the press. Let's see what happens at the major division this week in the top 7 rankings right after this break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft. Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go, why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get right into it. This is week number 3, Major Division poll rankings, unveiling for the top 7. We'll talk about who stays in the top 7 and maybe those that dropped out. I've never seen anything like this, David, Bryan, and Jamie. We had 5. Counting, I'll give you 5. You know my top 5? We had 5 teams that dropped out of the poll rankings in week number 3. Early in the season, you do see a lot of turnover, but I've never seen anything like this in the last 20 years of me unveiling major division and mid-major division top 10. For those that are new to this, major division is the FCS level HBCU programs, and mid-major are NCAA Division II as well as NIA programs. We'll unveil that on Tuesday. With that being said, dropping out this week, the Delaware State Hornets fall out as they fall 1-2 on the season. Tough loss, as we talked about them losing to Wagner 30-7. Alabama State Hornets, they fall out as well as they fall on the road to Samford 12-7. South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, fall out of the poll rankings as they go on the road to Georgia Southern and take a tough loss to the Georgia Southern Eagles, I should say, 42-14. Also dropping out this week, North Carolina Central, second consecutive loss of the week. They go on the road to North Carolina Tar Heels. They lose 45-10. And finally, the fifth team and the record-setting team falling out of a poll ranking that we've done over the last 20 years is the Morgan State Bears. They lost on the road at Ohio 21-6, if you would, in that matchup. Meaning, who's receiving votes? Receiving the votes, staying in contention at the top 10 level, if you would. The three teams receiving votes as you get interesting in this. And I see some eyes shaking and considering. South Carolina State Bulldogs at the top of the list, just outside of number 7, is with 136. The Bulldogs fall to 1-2 as they had a tough loss, as we talked about there, to those Georgia Southern. At number 8 is Morgan State Bears, 1-2, 134 points. And Prairie View hanging in there with their road loss to Michigan State, playing a much like North Carolina Central, playing a Power 4 school. This one out of the Big Ten versus the ACC. The Panthers lose 40-0, but fall to 1-2 on the season. What you want to see is the top 7. Let's do it. At number 7, we have none other than the Texas Southern Tigers. Bye week helped them to some degree. They stay at number 7, 1-1 on the season, and they have a big 1-0, unlike many folks in the conference race, as they defeated the Prairie View A&M Panthers on the road early in the matchup for Labor Day weekend. 159 points remaining at number 7. Bring us to number 6, new team, but they are back in the poll, I should say. Howard Bison improved to 2-1, 165 points as they go up to the New York Urban League Classic and beat up on Morehouse. But we got some news out of that Classic with the coach saying, yes, there are plans for Morehouse Maroon Tigers to move to Division I. So the fights are on. Are they going to go independent, join the historic white conference, join the SWAC? Many people believe it's the MEAC. We shall see and find out maybe when those dates will appear. At number 5, you have the Grambling State Tigers. Go on the road, stumble, put up a lot of points in the first half, push back, get the defense right, but can't get the offense going. But they do what a team that is learning how to win to make a statement does against a team that is moving up. Fourth quarter, they were down 7. They tie up the game, force it into overtime. They score first and get a big interception on the first play of offense by Texas A&M-Commerce. They get the win 35-28 as they tied it at 20-28 to take it to overtime. So they are in at number 4, 178 points. The third team that was not ranked last week that's back in the poll rankings is Tennessee State Tigers. They improved to 2-1. They were not ranked, but they have 187 points as they jump back into it. In the Southern Heritage Classic, they took care of the Golden Lions of Arkansas Pine Bluff 41-28 in that matchup, pretty convincingly as they got it done. A shout out to Brandon, as he called that in his write-up, following Tennessee State all year long, as one of our independent gurus out there following Tennessee State Tigers. He said they would get it done, and they did after I told him maybe not so fast. Well, let's get into the top 3. Top 3, and the number 3 is also a team that was not ranked last week and hasn't been ranked this year. The Hampton Pirates, they improved to 2-1. Second consecutive victory. They were behind Virginia Union, but came back in their second half, and they haven't stopped since as they improved 2-1 in defeat Norfolk State and really controlled their game on both sides of the ball in the front line and get it done as they dominate Norfolk 37-7 on the road. As the road team has won, 5 consecutive games in that matchup? Crazy to say in that rivalry, but for the Hampton Pirates, they wanted to hold true, and it did. Our last team that was not ranked last week, but jumping back in the poll, they were ranked in the preseason. And boy, what a time to make a statement against their rival. They do that at home. They improved to 2-1. 5 first place as they jump back into the rankings, 220 points. They are number 2 in week number 3, Dr. Ville's inside the HBCU Sports Lab as they dominate. They hold Southern to under 30 yards as they rush for over 200 yards in that contest. You could see very early as they jumped out 10-0 that they were meaning business in that matchup. Shout out to TC Taylor, Coach TC Taylor, with the big win in week number 3, bringing us to number 1. Florida A&M Rattlers started off the season at the top of the polls for some. Some didn't have them there, but they've quietly made it work. Had some close games, come from behind, but they've been steady. They were off this weekend, but they remain at number 1, 2-1 on the season, 6 first place votes, 221 points. It'll be interesting as things start to inch closer and closer to SWAC play. You get some games next week. Fascinating, but right now, I want to see what the gentlemen say about the top 7. I'm going to go to you first, David. What do you think about the top 7 poll rankings in week number 3 as we unveil for the first time Sunday morning in our Sunday edition?
First of all, I want to say, brilliant idea to do this on Sunday, right before the press conferences. My thoughts are there's a couple schools that have 2 FCS wins. I probably would move those, and those 2 should be near the top, at the top, and that would be Tennessee State and Florida A&M. Florida A&M being number 1 makes the most sense. Hampton's dominance on Norfolk shocked me. I expected Hampton to win, but it really shocked me how dominant they were on both sides. And same goes for Jackson State. So I'm not going to give too much churn about those 4. I think I'll probably put Tennessee State up, and I'll probably argue Hampton a little higher too. But
I can see that. And I like your rationale about the fact they defeated 2 FCS wins, but we must say they were against Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Mississippi
Fair
Valley,
enough.
who are both Valley is 0-3 after a really good mix the first couple of weeks, particularly last weekend at Lamar. Had a good contest, but Murray State beat him up pretty bad. So it's interesting to see what that looks like. And then you talk about Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Intriguing to kind of see what that means. And so with that said, I want to go to Jamie. Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on the top 7 and see if you're in line with myself or are you in line with Dave, your fellow Aggie?
You know, I tell you what, just looking at it, I think I am more in line with you just based on
based on welcome back. You get back on the show.
Just based on where it's sitting. I think, you know, the surprising part of Hampton and Tennessee State, their wins do come against, FCS opponents, but you do have to look at everything in totality. The surprising one, Jackson State jumping all the way to 2, even though I think they are playing very well right now. I think they have some things going, and I think that team will continue to improve, especially if they solidify the quarterback position. Big matchup this weekend will kind of tell that as well. But I don't have a problem with the top 7. I don't have a problem with it.
To your point, one thing that is interesting in the poll, all these top 7 teams have at least 1 win against the FCS team. Texas Southern over Prairie View, Howard over a team, Mercyhurst, that is transitioning. Division I, Grambling State Tigers, obviously with their win over Texas A&M-Commerce, that is transitioning a little further throughout that transition. The first year in the transition, Tennessee State beat them on the road. Talking about Tennessee State, they have 2 wins over LCS programs. One at home against Mississippi Valley, and the second in the Southern Heritage Classic that was just played yesterday, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Hampton Pirates have a win over Norfolk State on the road. They came from behind and beat Norfolk Virginia Union, I should say, which many people has the top ranked team at the mid-major level the first couple of weeks coming into the season until that loss. So intriguing when you think about that. Jackson State Tigers with the win over Southern, and FAMU opening up things in the MEAC SWAC Challenge in that win over Norfolk State. Now, with all that being said, Bryan, bring it home. What are your thoughts in the Terp 7, particularly how you no longer have to worry about North Carolina Central? So that thing was answered for you But those that are now in the top 7, what are your thoughts on these top 7s and the order?
Okay, so I know you're going to ask me before I say, how is this team missing? I have to look at your top 7 and look at my top 7 and kind of see who should not be in there. And okay, I found them. It's that team at the very bottom, Texas Southern. Look.
They're going to win the West. Watch. You're going to mess around and win the West.
Oh, my God. That would be so crazy. I wish I could find some wagers on that, because that's probably worth some good pizza money. But I'll tell you, I am higher on Morgan State than anybody, probably, and shout out to the Morgan State Bears. I'll tell you where I have them tonight when you tune in. I'll save it. I like to do a tease tonight. But
I like
that. Morgan State is probably the only HBCU to cover against 2 FBS schools in back-to-back weeks. Against Towson, losing 14-9. Losing to Ohio, and I think that was a 20-point spread against Towson, somewhere in that ballpark. And then against Ohio, it was a 24.5-point spread. They lose 21-6. I mean, we have to value at some point in these polls, voters, we have to value. All wins aren't equal. I'm sorry, they are not. You can't beat up on Sisters of the Poor from West Appalachia State and think that's the same equivalent to covering an FBS team or beating an FCS team on the road. It's not. It is not. So I'm sorry, Jackson State. I love y'all. Actually, and crazy part, I have Jackson State too. But I feel for Morgan State people. I'll reveal where I have Morgan State later. But I feel your pain, Bears Nation. No respect. I respect y'all. I respect Morgan State a little more than some of the voters in Dr. Cavil's poll.
I mean, I picked them to win the MEAC, but
one thing about Morgan State that I think is going to be fascinating to watch is, can they get the offense going? I mean, right now we know they have a championship level defense. We've seen that 2 years in a row, but I haven't seen anything offensively that would allow you to say they're all that. But the thing that I'm struggling with in terms of your statement is you're valuing their losses in terms of the point spreads versus the win. You talk about Texas Southern. Texas Southern has a win over FCS program in conference play. To me, that means a lot. They have a loss to a FBS program. Bad loss, yes. Then you have Prairie View. Prairie View has the loss to Texas Southern, but they have an FCS win, which Morgan State does not.
No, they do. Morgan State beat Hampton.
They beat Hampton. That's the thing, Doc. They beat the number 3 team.
When they went on the road to do that. I agree. They went on the road to do that.
But value. I'm sorry.
Right, but Prairie View did the same. Texas Southern did the same. So it's almost as if you value historically white college wins than HBCUs. I got to say it because to your point, they all have D1 FCS wins.
It's about the out of conference victories too.
Is on the road against historically white college, so that's the same as Morgan State, and they have a conference road, which is tough when you open up the season. So I think you're hedging your bets on those, and you just have your own inclination. But I'm just not seeing what's unique other than the point spread in terms of what they lost in those matchups. And Texas Southern doesn't have that loss. Unfortunately for them, they were open this weekend. But next weekend, I think you get another indicator, as Mike would say, a data point, as Texas Southern is on the road to Lamar, the FCS program. So if they get that win, they would have 2 FCS wins versus Morgan State, and they get another chance next week as they are on the road and get a chance to make their statement as well. So
the beauty of the bye week, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah, and that's
beauty of the bye week.
Early in the season, you're evaluating teams that necessarily haven't done the same thing. So fascinating to see what that looks like. To you all's point.
And let me add this, Doc, if I could, about Texas.
Yeah,
Southern,
I always get a chance to respond. I'm not gonna close it down.
No. In Texas Southern,
you are the producer, so you have the pen a little stronger than me. I might you controlling things a little bit now, so I'm gonna be nice. Morgan State plays Virginia Lynchburg and hosts them next week, so that's not gonna be anything. But go ahead and make your point, Brian.
But Texas Southern, though, Texas Southern. What was the score last week when they played? Who was it they played last week?
They played Rice, went across the street, played Rice, got the head bump. I will say that
69-7, that powerhouse from Houston, Rice out, right?
But I think we get dangerous when we just look at a score and go match to match. We also got to take everything in totality. Rice played Sam Houston State, got bopped in the head. This is Sam Houston State now that is at the FBS. A lot of people still see Sam Houston the FCS, but that's not the case. They have FBS and finishing out their transition. And there were a lot of expectations from Rice. So this is a relatively talented Rice team. They're not the Rice that we think in the past, but I think after that first loss, and so what you got is because they got to transfer quarterback in there and some running back, a lot of transfers that are pretty nice. And so you may be surprised in terms of Rice. Now, Rice got bopped in the head this past weekend from Houston. Houston, which I think a lot of people seeing them play a little stronger. They held Oklahoma at home,
but if we're
a game that some people lost. So I'm saying it's so challenged when you get in the early season because you're looking at one or two matchups versus a collage of similar type of matchups going up. And so, yeah, I agree with you.
Well, Morgan receiving votes was good too, right? Like they were number 8, if I recall, right? They had the most votes that was right
they were
outside
9.
the top 10.
They right
they were
there.
9. So I mean,
top 10.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. You're not.
It's close. Like when you get to once you get past the top 4, it's pretty close. Like when you start thinking about it.
And I like this because it gives people an indication in terms of the voters. This is the thing that voters are thinking about, and it kind of matters in terms of their personal head. You give the parameters, wins, losses, road. And they need to put all those in place, but there's nothing that triggers that says that everybody has to value a point spread differential versus a win compared to someone else. So you're right.
But regardless of the point spread, though, I'm looking at group of 5 teams, right? These are PWI's group of 5 teams: Rice, Ohio, Towson.
Towson's the FCS. Towson's in the CAA. Towson's in the CAA.
My mistake.
CAA. Yeah, Towson's in the CAA.
Okay, so if I'm just looking at the Ohio versus
Rice
contest, right? I'm looking at group of 5 teams, and you're going on the road. And I'm looking at one game that was 21-6, and the other game that was 69-7.
Right.
So,
but the thing is let's say next week those two teams play in Rice in a neutral site, and Rice dominated Ohio.
My evaluation will change. That's the one thing about these weekly polls. My evaluation next week will change.
Ohio is that much better than Rice, but we really don't know that because in games it's about matchups, how they look each other, home and away, those kind of things. So I think even in that subjectivity, I think you can give it a little bit, but the weight that you put on for me is a little less. Jamie, last thoughts, and we'll get out of this segment. And
this is actually a great discussion, just on people's valuation as well, and a very interesting contrast from last year where the MEAC were beating CAA squads a lot, and it's a little different this year. So kind of an observation from outside. We'll see if that continues.
Great point.
Hopefully, there's a couple other.
Hopefully, it does continue.
It does continue.
We'll talk about that in the next segment. Great lead up. Good, perfect fastball. Again, the top 7 in week number 3, number 7, Texas Southern Tigers 1-1 with 159 points. They remain at number 7. At number 6, Howard Bison 2-1, 165 points. Were not ranked last weekend. Number 5, Grambling State Tigers 2-1, 178 points. Were not ranked in week number 2. At number 4, Tennessee State Tigers with a big win, improved to 2-1, 187 points, as they were not ranked. And the last 2 here, 3 is Hampton Pirates 2-1, 191 points. They were not ranked last week, as well as number 2, Jackson State Tigers 2-1. 5 first place votes, 220 points, were not ranked. Remaining at number 1, second consecutive week is none other than the FAMU Rattlers, 2-1, 65, 221 points. And the race for the Celebration Bowl between the MEAC and SWAC is on. We'll see if we can get like a Hampton Pirates or Tennessee State Tigers as independents to kind of derail that matchup. We'll see. Things go week to week. We'll talk about in the next segment what to expect in week number 4 from these gentlemen and experts here. Stick with this after this last break.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be. You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel. Yes! That's how you waffle!
Mr. This script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer.
Go for key.
Even the ultimate pool float inflator. With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you. Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true. Gotta get the corners.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, because he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bills inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's talk about some of these key matchups this weekend, and I know where a lot of energy is going for me, so I'm going to jump right into it. We have some big rivals matchups in the MEAC versus the Coastal Athletic Conference. You know, I always say Colonial, but I have my guests on, so I'm going to be good today. That North Carolina Central Eagles versus North Carolina A&T, the Aggies, is just fascinating to me in terms of that matchup and what's going on. I have a lot of thought and want to hear your all's thought in terms of that matchup in week number 4 as we move forward. These chapters continue to add up, as well as the Howard and Hampton, the battle of the real HU, as they say in a lot of places. Depending if you're talking to some Howard folks, they be like, no, there's only one HU. We'll see what that looks like. They've had a trouble defeating the Hampton Pirates. I will say that for sure. Even last year when they just thought they had the game, Skywalker, Jay Walker was calling that game. And you could tell that he was professional to the end, but you could tell he ate that one personally, as he just knew that things were trending. Even things, all those things worked out for Howard in terms of winning the MEAC and making it to the Celebration Bowl and falling just short on a real magical season. I'm fascinating in these two matchups, so I'm going to start with our Aggies on this call. Let me go with you, Jamie. What are your thoughts in terms of this A&T North Carolina Central matchup, particularly after what took place this weekend for the Eagles of North Carolina Central?
Well, I think if you go back to last year's game, you're talking about a brand new staff, brand new offense, brand new quarterback. You're talking about a lot that went new. And what could have happened, what was a matchup where the Aggies still had opportunities to win that ball game, but Central, with the experienced quarterback in Davius Richard, that running game with Collier and others, were able to pull it out. And if you know that rivalry, Davis Richard from the outset was that quarterback. I'm talking about 2 years beforehand. He had taken his lumps against North Carolina A&T. So it was one of those things where, they're finally there with the experienced team, getting some get back, new coaches, defensive coordinator now over at North Carolina Central that was formerly at A&T. All the things that went on this year, new quarterback, new situation, new running back at Central. I think the Aggies are improving, but not quite there in relation to where they want to be in totality. You're talking about breaking in the quarterback, and you're not quite sure what happened. The loss to Delaware on yesterday was not, our finest hour, but you could see the pieces and things start to happen in relation to where they are. But when you're talking about a team that's outsized, you're talking about a squad that still has to develop in relation to North Carolina Central, coming off a loss to UNC. They're beat up right now. There's some questions about who will be calling the signals for them going into this game. So I think this game has the opportunity. I'm not going to pick. I know who I hope, but I'm not going to pick a winner. I will just say this game has the potential to be close, and those that think of the team that may lose may just come out the winner. So far, the teams in the CAA have trended upward. So we will see what happens.
Jamie, I'm gonna save you. He's a professional. He calls the game, so he can't call a lot of these matchups. Or at least that's what we're gonna say at this moment here. David,
I'm not a professional, so I can't call this matchup. So the big thing for me, the big thing for me is ultimately with the changes within North Carolina Central, and I'll call their name because we're talking about the game today. But things that's going on with that team and what's going on in A&T are different. They did lose a lot of players via the portal. They do have a new quarterback. We're still trying to figure out where he is because he did not return in the game against UNC over yesterday. A&T's offensively, while it has been rough so far this year, they're still vastly improved from what we saw last season. It took like 7 games last year for us to throw 400 yards. We've exceeded that. We've been somewhat not as balanced as I would like from a rushing standpoint. The run got shut down yesterday against Delaware, but Delaware has 85 scholarships. Folks got to remember they're transitioning to FBS. So from that standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see what this game is going to look like on Saturday. It's been a while since that school down in Durham has beaten us at home. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I think this game is going to be close. Wouldn't be surprised if A&T pulls it out, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. It is going to be a dogfight. And the factor is going to be whether or not Walker Harris is available, the starting quarterback for those boys down in Durham.
Bryan, you can comment on this game, or do you want to move to some other matchups that are top 7 in nature?
Well, I got to talk about the Hampton versus Howard.
Right. Hold on. I'm gonna set that up and allow you to get right back there. Okay. I'm gonna set that up. We just unveiled that the top 7 rankings. So based on that, in week number 3 coming into this game, this is a top 7 matchup. This is number 3, the Hampton Pirates versus number 7. So you have Howard going on the road, ranked number 6, hosted by the number 3 ranked Hampton Pirates in this matchup. So I'm fascinating to hear what you have to say with a top 7 matchup. Both teams going 2-1, kind of alluded to Hampton dominating this play as late, but Howard certainly is coming. Go ahead, Bryan, take it away. What are your thoughts on this top 7 matchup?
Hold on. I'm trying to get my thoughts here because I don't want to be politically correct. I want to be as realistic as possible about this because the H is in Hampton, and this is the one week that Howard gets to be like, yo, this is not a rivalry. This is a slaughter. This is a beating. This is a 2-decade-long beating that you have been getting from Hampton with an H. With an H. So Howard has been, I think it's like they have won maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years.
It's like 11 straight right now, I think, right?
Yeah. Oh, my. Look.
It's been 11 straight.
I don't see it being any different this year. No different. I don't see. Look, it's in DC. And look, hold on. Where's my man? Hold on. Somebody put it in the chat. If Cavil shows up, Adam Spencer just said, if Cavil shows up, oh, Lord have mercy, watch out. That's another loss for Howard this week. So I know it's hard. I know y'all want the presidential-elect candidate, Vice President Harris, to show up. I know that's what y'all want, but somebody might, through the back channels, ask VP Harris, it's okay. You can root from the road. You can root from the campaign trail. We know we gonna support. You got our vote. But this one, sit this one out, sister. Sit this one out. Sit this one out. So that way, maybe we'll have a chance. But I'm just waiting to see what the line is. I'm holding on to money. I'm sitting money to the side, waiting to see that. Please, God, let Howard be favored. Please, Lord, so I can go ahead and jump on Hampton. That's all I can say about this.
All I know is this.
Calling the game, so I'm gonna go to you, Dave. Get your thoughts.
Doc, so you know why I'm not calling.
Go
this
ahead,
one,
Dave. Get some thoughts in terms of what direction you're going with this game.
I mean, I'm definitely picking Hampton here, but for me, you need to be more concerned about the traffic of having a vice president / presidential candidate near that game in DC. You need to be more concerned about the traffic situation there. But overall, man, there were times like there's a lot of questions for Howard, and because they're winning, a lot of folks aren't really having those discussions. But now, because like they beat Morehouse, some folks are questioning whether or not it should have been that close from the scoreboard. They probably should have lost to Mercyhurst. They needed a miracle to be Mercyhurst, and Hampton is firing all cylinders right now. So from that standpoint, I think Hampton's going to get the nod, and I pray for Erica because this has been rough for her. She ain't seen Hampton win in a long time.
And everybody's point, Hampton is listed as the home team, classic type of game. It's at Audi Field, so it is in Washington, D.C., as Dave just said. Let's look at this other top 7 matchup. You have Jackson State and Grambling. You have Jackson State at number 2 and Grambling at number 5. So this is an impressive matchup as well, as Jackson State goes on the road to take on Grambling. And history knows that Jackson has always just had a tough time on the road in Grambling. They've got their own, but they've usually been at home. They just cannot seem to win on the road at Grambling. This is a chance for Grambling is trying to take the next step and saying that they're going to be for real in terms of their new coach and what they want to do. But it also is a chance for Jackson State to say, no, everything is in the Eastern Division, and we're going to keep it over there in terms of dominance. And this is why, because we're going to make a statement of why we should be the guys appropriately ranked at number 2 in the rankings. So I'm fascinated on this matchup. Dave, where are you with this one?
Man, this is fascinating to me because I think this is going to be a true test for Jackson State. Like I think Grambling has been coming and going, and then after what's happened so far at the beginning of the season, Grambling will have a legitimate shot to win the West. A lot of folks didn't have those guys in the West considering what's going on with the other schools. So from that standpoint, this is a fascinating matchup. I'm curious to see how Jackson State does in this matchup. I mean, they're still out here playing 2 quarterbacks again, so I'm kind of curious to see how this game's going to go. I'm going to pick Jackson State. I know they have trouble winning in Grambling, but I'm going to still pick Jackson State for this one.
Jamie, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to tell you what. I think the matchup is intriguing only because I think Grambling has the potential to be a very wide open offense. Because I think, with the preseason SWAC player of the year, Miles Crawley, I think you got someone who's a quality signal caller for that offense. And I think they're playing quality defense. But I think when you look at Jackson State in totality, that front 7 is phenomenal. Not quite sure about that back 4. They've been, kind of iffy, but susceptible to the big play. But if you can run the football the way Jackson State does with a full complement of backs and along with the quarterbacks as well, they can keep that Grambling offense off the field. I think it'll be a close one. I think Grambling plays up to the task, but I think Jackson State wins it in the end.
Bryan, I'd love to see what your thoughts are on this matchup.
This is such an exciting week. I feel like preseason is officially over. Like all of the preseason games, and yes, there were some games that mattered. So I don't want to, I know, but this is when it gets fun. Like there are so many good matchups this week, this weekend, and this is one of them. I'm curious to see how Jackson State responds to going on the road. I mean, it's all nice when you're at home and you got the comfy of the vet. You got the celebrities that want to come to the game. You got the beautiful the crowd and everybody's bopping and singing Frankie Beverly in the crowd. Now, I hope Grambling, I hope Gram fam comes with that same energy because I don't know. I see a lot of empty seats every time I look at a Grambling game. I'm sorry, Gram fam. I keep seeing a lot of empty seats. So I don't know if Jackson State usually travels. And I got a feeling that they're going to travel. They're going to show up. I am jealous, Israel. I am jealous. Yes, I am a little jealous. But I'm looking forward to this contest. I don't know what the lean on this one is. I may have to lean with the home team, Grambling right now, but it's just a lean. I'm going to wait until either tonight or maybe later in the week before I really give a strong prediction on this one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's go off the board to another game, and this one's intriguing, not in terms of its ranking matchup, but in terms of the conference play. Southern traveling to Prairie View. In the past, when Coach Odoms was the head coach of Southern, this was his get-right game, and they would push forward, and the Jaguars would find a way to get right. Prairie View would come in with a lot of momentum, oftentimes in this matchup, be 2-0, 3-0 in conference play after beating Grambling and Texas Southern, and maybe another SWAC contest. It's a little earlier in the season than it's normal, but Southern comes off a tough road loss to Jackson State conference game that was played as a non-conference matchup. But Prairie View, as you know, lost to Texas Southern, so they 0-1 in terms of the conference play. Neither one of these teams can really afford to lose this matchup, particularly Prairie View. 2 losses in the West, while we may think there's a lot of things going on, to lose that early is fascinating. And to imagine what the fans of Southern Jaguars will do if they lose 2 straight games, even though only one of them is counting in conference play, and the way they think about Prairie View, even though that matchup between Prairie View and Southern has been dominated by Prairie View of late. That's just not the matchup they have. So it's going to be interesting to see. Edwin D. Moore, Southern wins at Prairie View. They're just used to going on the road and winning that. But Prairie View is taking care of Southern at home the last couple of years, and over the last decade in the 90s, that matchup was 5-5. So not a lot going on there. I'm fascinated to see, is Southern really able to get right in that matchup, or is Prairie View able to prove in terms of what they were able to do against Northwestern State, and is the indication of who they are. I'm intrigued about that matchup. Any thoughts from you, Bryan, in terms of what that looks like?
Prairie View at home. It's funny, Doc. I keep going to this because I think when you have a home field advantage, it matters, right? Jackson State has a home field advantage. Florida A&M, we know no one can come into Bragg and win, so we have a home field advantage.
Oh Lord, here you go.
No lies told. I'm just like,
it's been a minute since y'all kept your fade in there. I'll give you that.
Yeah, thank you. And for the people who think I hate on Jackson State, who did I just mention first? Come on now.
No, absolutely.
Prairie View. Is Prairie View fans look? They had a great crowd. That game against Texas Southern was at Prairie View, right? And they had a great crowd, right? And it wasn't all Texas Southern fans, so it was a great crowd for Prairie View. Can they bring that same energy this week? Because here Southern traveled, but is Southern still all in with their team right now? Hopefully so. So I'm hoping that Prairie View brings a good crowd, because this should be a good game. And if Prairie View has a good crowd, they might actually be able to win this one. I think it would. I think Southern folks would start jumping if they lose this one. I think they're gonna start jumping.
Jamie, any thoughts on this matchup? We have one additional matchup, and then we'll call it a close.
Actually, Southern kind of found their offense at the end of that ball game. And if they can sustain that, they'll have an opportunity. But I just like the simplicity of what PV brings defensively. And if Southern can't provide any offense at all, even with those two quarterbacks, I think it'll be a long day for Southern. I think Prairie View has everything. They're trending in the right directions despite that loss this weekend. I think, when they're coming back home and playing SWAC opponents, I think that slap in the face against Texas Southern really woke them up. And I think, Coach McDowell and that brain trust, especially defensively, have improved. So I think if Southern cannot bring consistent offense to that game, I think Prairie View should have no problem with it, despite the name on the jersey, Southern. I think Prairie View has an opportunity, especially with the big play. Watch them outside and them being able to both have some balance and bring balance to the ball game. Prairie View should win this ball game.
Dave?
We've been talking about the ledge when we opened the show. Oh man, that ledge is gonna be full if Prairie View wins this game against Southern this weekend, and I actually think that's gonna happen. So I know it's rough for Southern right now, but don't jump yet. But it's a legitimate concern. Prairie View can't afford to go 0-2 in conference, so I think Prairie View's urgency is going to be much higher right now.
Good stuff in terms of those matchups. I did want to say that A&T Central matchup can be watched on ESPN Plus. The Prairie View Southern matchup can be watched on ESPN Plus. The Jackson State Grambling matchup, those top 7 matchups can be watched on ESPN Plus. So make sure you tune into these matchups, whether by your phone if you're out tailgating, or certainly at home. And make sure you plug it up on your streaming device and even hook it to your TV like I do on Saturdays when I do not have an appointment to get to a game and cover it. So wanted to give you that information in terms of what that looks like. Fascinating to see these matchups and many of these matchups being broadcast between ESPN Plus, HBCU Go. We even had a game on CNBC yesterday, but most of these matchups you can catch. The last one I do want to bring to your attention is a SIAC versus SWAC matchup, Division II mid-major matchup against the majors. Last year we had quite a few mid-major division upsets that really threw everybody asunder. This year we had some that people were looking forward to, but at this point, the FCS has dominated the SIAC-CIAA in terms of the major dominating the mid-major. They are undefeated. There has not been a mid-major upset, if you would. Clark Atlanta comes in. Week number 3 will unveil where they are this week in terms of being ranked number 2 in the mid-major division. They tied with Florida Memorial, so you'd imagine they probably won't move up, but not likely to move down. But if it is, it's just a spot or two. So they'll be in top 7 matchup against Bethune-Cookman. That only scored 2 points the week before, but they woke up. While they had a loss, they put up some points this past weekend, particularly in the second half, where they scored 31 points. We know that Clark Atlanta can put up points. Had some problems stopping folks. They've gotten key stops to get those victories they had in the first 2 weeks. Very key matchups, but this one is intriguing to me. In a lot of ways, this is what I told you. When I talked about expansion of the conference there, we looked at Tennessee State, and I think is Brandon in? I know he was trying to get in. Maybe hadn't quite made it in. I'll give him a plug as he has an article coming out that talks about what would that look like in terms of expansion. And everybody knows that I want the Atlanta market and have talked about Clark Atlanta, particularly with their R2 status. So oftentimes we focus on Tennessee State in SWAC matchups or Tennessee State in MEAC matchups for those that are intrigued with that. But this is a chance where we talked about those that are in favor of a D2 outside of Morehouse moving up, as they talked about Clark Atlanta in that market. Can they make a statement in terms of, more importantly, are they moving this program forward and get a huge win? Will Bethune-Cookman shuck off the cobwebs and keep everybody with a clean slate in terms of the major divisions against the mid-major? I'm going to go with you first, Bryan, on this matchup, since this is your favorite foe in a lot of ways, Bethune-Cookman Wildcats.
Doc, you said that Bethune scored 30-something points, right, for the first time in all season. Hey, they gave up 50 something too. and rat poison is coming to Municipal Stadium, and they might score 60. I'm just telling you, they would have scored 60 in Miami Gardens. The only thing that could stop Clark's offense is Mother Nature. I'm telling you, that was the only thing that stopped that game was Mother Nature, because that game was going well over into the 40s, maybe 50s, and it was just going to come down to whoever had the ball last. That's how great that game was in the first half. But man, this might be the backbreaker. That streak you were talking about is I hate to be messy, but this is an offense that they look really good, and no one looked hurt coming out of that game against Clark. So as long as the bus can travel back from Atlanta down to Florida, y'all in trouble. Bethune, I'm telling y'all now, y'all in trouble. Upset alert. Put them on upset alert. Nah, if Clark, there's no way Clark is scoring just 17 points, Jimmy Wilson. I'm sorry. They score 17 waking up out of the bed. They're gonna
right. They put 17 in the first quarter.
They put 17 up in the first quarter. Bethune better come with some cleats. They better. I know it's AstroTurf, but is there a way they can throw some sand and slow down the turf? I don't know how you're gonna stop this team, given what you are, Bethune-Cookman. I'm sorry. This is an upset alert right here.
But is it an upset?
It's not. No, it's not.
Oh, that's the sad part. It's got to be an upset just by definition.
I know, but
I see what you're saying. Going into, you have Clark Atlanta actually as the favorite if you were setting up a betting. Yeah. With that being said, I'm gonna go to you, Dave, and then Jamie. Since you're the expert at the Division II level, I'm gonna let you close it out as we close out the show. Go ahead, Dave.
The best quarterback in this game plays for Clark Atlanta. So for me, it's hard for me not to pick Clark Atlanta here. And I understand why they wouldn't be the favorites on a betting line, because they're a Division II program. But Teddy Keaton's got these boys rocking. And I don't see the same thing coming from that end from Coach Woody. So for Bethune-Cookman. So for me, I got Clark in the win. I know everybody thinks that Brian's being petty. Nah, it's not that. Clark should be able to win this game.
Good point. Jamie, setting you up. I talked to Lynn Thompson before he stepped down as the VP of Athletics at Bethune-Cookman University. Many people, we had an interview with him. Many people didn't realize that he actually had his master's at Clark Atlanta University when he did his undergraduate at Bethune-Cookman. So I asked him, because I've wanted this game for a while. 2 private schools, that East Coast corridor, relatively good location, marketplace. Why hadn't this game been played? He said he tried to set it up. Clark Atlanta didn't really seem interested at the time. Obviously, that was a different Clark Atlanta team over the years, and in a lot of ways, a different Bethune-Cookman football program as well. Now, this is a final matchup that's set up. Your expertise seeing things at the Division II level, much as you cover the SIAC and even some CIAA, and then you are professional and you follow the major division. What are your thoughts in terms of this keen matchup against private HBCU institutions in a regional location, one at the Division II level in the SIAC, the other in the SWAC at the Division I level FCS major division program?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what. Somebody put it in the chat, and I saw it come up, and I think that is the X factor: 65 versus 40. I think that's the only thing that really gives Bethune-Cookman an advantage. And what I mean by that is, if you're talking about offensive skill, you got to give a heavy advantage to Clark Atlanta. When you're talking about the size of these teams, you're talking about the scholarships and things of that nature towards the end of the game, that always, I think, comes into play. Maybe not necessarily in rivalry games because, you have that factor. But at the same time, when you're talking about Teddy Keaton and offense, everywhere he's gone, he's improved that offense. I would have gone Brian's way if not for the 31 points that Bethune-Cookman scored against Western Michigan. And the thing about that is it looks like that offense has at least woken up some. So I think, as much as I love Clark Atlanta, they've had some games where they've had some battles. Think about it. You're talking about an NAIA squad against Florida Memorial that really, if you look at that team in totality, their passing game is not where you want it. They rely fully on the running game a lot of their time. So when it comes to just what Clark Atlanta is able to do, I'm not worried about what they do offensively. It's the defense that I worry about, and the scholarships and them being able to get off the field on third down is the benefactor. I think this game is close, but I think Bethune-Cookman pulls it out at the end.
Good comments, and people are talking about the Division I status of these programs and whether they take athletics seriously. I think people confuse in terms of what a program does in the past and what they're going to do now. Moving to a different division is about a vision and a commitment, and you can't tell any institution what commitment they're going to make. You can question it if you're going to do your exercise and expansion, but you cannot assume that they're not going to make the commitment. So that's something that I think people need to be careful about, focusing just on somebody's past in athletics. There's a lot of the bigger branded programs that were great in the past, but no longer make the same type of commitment to athletics. And over the last 10 years, they've fallen on their face, and they only surviving by the brand and not in terms of what they bring to athletics. Will they revitalize them? You would think so, because those usually what those programs do. But I think we need to be careful in regards to understanding the business of athletics, and you don't just move an institution from one level to other level because of athletics. That's the linchpin in terms of the vehicle you can do it. But this is about understanding the brand value for a conference and a institution and the region that institution or city is in, as well as what do they want to do in terms of creating a bigger brand, maybe branding their institution to grow enrollment. And those things can allow you to fund your athletics even more. And so be careful of just putting a pin on something and looking at what an institution was versus what is their goals and plans to do. Perfect institution to say about that in terms of the enrollment is North Carolina A&T. They were not the largest institution in HBCU landscape. And while they allowed athletics in a lot of ways to bring the notoriety and the brain framework, the goal was to grow in enrollment. Now they are the largest HBCU for the last 4 or 5 years straight. And a lot of that is because they had a chancellor and a board that had a vision in terms of making a commitment of how you grow this institution. Now, we can complain my framework in terms of what they did, in terms of joining the Big South, Colonial, now Coastal Athletic Conference. But if they're going to support the vision to be competitive, it will work out too. But be a mindset of what that looks like. We're going to drop a pin and leave it right there as we end with the business thought. Great dialogue between these brothers. Went a little longer, special edition of Vision, but wanted to make sure you got the rankings and some talk about next week as great games to be played. All of them you can go to or watch in many different ways, so check it out. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, both on the road. So we brought in stellar individuals to get it done. That's Jamie Walker, David Rhodes, Bryan Fulford. Thank you. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Charles and I will be on the road in Atlanta for the basketball media day. So we'll be doing that. We'll catch up with some folks there. Check us out this week. We're going to try to bring you some content. We'll see if we can get the thing going for Monday. So keep your eyes on that as we push forward. Wednesday, we'll find out we can mash it up and get you something there. We have some folks making some moves. So keep an eye if we're able to bring that to you. And then Friday, we'll see what we do as well. But we'll try to push to get you 5 days a week, 6 to 7 Central Time, 7 to 8 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Obviously, you know, on Sunday, you can get a breakdown of what went down on Saturday to keep your eyes and news on HBCU Sports, the sporting diaspora, as I like to call it. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just to give a formal opening, I wanted to do that. I'll squeeze it in at the end. As we said, welcome to these episodes 548 inside the HBCU Sports Lab, showing the podcast with covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports. For institutions large and small, from the NAIA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture HBCU Athletic Aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, calling a day right here as we do our official close. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. David?
Of course.
Jamie?
Lecture.
Bryan?
This is.
See, when you bring in the experts and the veteran, they knock it out. Great show. Enjoy your Sunday. Tune in for Bryan. Jamie, you joining him tonight?
I will be.
They'll be back into it. You'll get double doses of two of them bringing it to you. That is at 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Tune in to Sports Wraps. You'll get a double dose, letting you know their perspective, and Bryan will unveil his poll rankings, let you know what it looks like against mine. Should be interesting as we got in a little bit of talk today. Thank you. See you on the other side. Monday starts the media football conference. Get ready to get your updates and see what these coaches think about their rankings, as we got some top 7 matchups going into week number 4. With that, we'll bid it adieu.